Hello everyone, welcome to Career Talk. I'm Sunan Sharma, an agile consultant based in Netherlands, and today we will talk about situational project manager interview questions from Ford Motors, shared by our WhatsApp group member who recently attended an interview. So, friends, you will notice that these questions are quite different from what you could usually hear in our service-based companies. Even though this role is for project manager, many questions focus on the product. So that shows that today's project manager need to have a good understanding of products too. And to help us with the answers, we have Karabi Bharadwaj with us, who has been on our channel few times before. And before we dive in, if you're new here, please subscribe to our channel. We have lots of valuable content for you. And if you find this session helpful, don't forget to smash that like button. Okay, so without further delay, let's get started. Welcome, Karabi, and thank you for joining us today. Karabi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sunan, for inviting me once again. And I do appreciate the invite and your time. Thank you.
Great. So if you allow, shall we start?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the very first question is, let's imagine that you are working for enterprise data platform that needs to adapt to new technological advancement and the market trends. So how would you define and adapt the product roadmap under such conditions along with the product manager? Yeah, Karabi.
Okay. So this is about definition of the product roadmap, right? And I think the definition should start from the problem statement. From the problem statement, we also need to identify what are the primary strategic objective of the organization. So although we may have a few problem statement coming in from various quarters, including internal teams and the customers, but the strategic objective of the organization might be something very different, right? So analysis of the strategic objective as well as the problem statement coming in from the various quarters is very important. And after analysis, I think we need to categorize our findings. We need to rank our priorities and we need to prepare a business case against each of these priorities, right? Remember, when we are providing our analysis, our findings as a part of report, we are primarily seeking an investment from the stakeholders so that they can invest on a new feature capability development or probably fixing some of the broken things, right? In order to ask for additional budget, a business case with some data point like the ROI or probably the annualized recurring revenue or the monthly recurring revenue or probably a percentage growth in the user base or maybe the percentage reduction in churns would be key matrices and helpful for the investors to kind of think and invest on that particular product roadmap. That's about it, Sumit.
Yeah, Karabi. Yeah, thank you for that. Wonderful. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. So suppose that you have that platform team that receive the feedback from multiple business units and they are requesting different feature enhancements. So how would you prioritize these features? How you are going to balance the customer feedback, all the insights, and of course the business impact on all of these? Yeah.
Right. So this is a very general situation for all of us, right? Because we are receiving many feature requests. Now, for those who are viewing this session, they would need to understand the sources of feedback from within an organization as well as external to the organization. The sources can be multiple, including the marketing team, sales team, service requests. The source can be also from a lot of service requests as well as incident tickets, right? And that can also come as a feedback from the customer, as a from the customer success team, including the competing landscape, which is external to the organization, the changing or the evolving business situation. So whenever we are receiving the feedback, I have actually highlighted in my answer initially that these feedbacks are actually collected by various teams. You'll see the marketing team will have a separate set of feedback, which may or may not be common with the feedback which the service team or the maintenance team would be having. It essentially means that each one of the team has a mechanism to collect, categorize, and prioritize the feedback. Now, often in an organization, which I have experienced, is that there lacks a common standard to kind of stitch all this feedback together onto one place and to categorize them under broad common headers, which can serve the purpose for all the teams across. This unique set of categories, which may serve the purpose of the board members, the stakeholder leadership, senior leadership teams, and our individual departments, can help in a long way to work, or probably, to not to work in silos. So once we categorize them under broad categories, we have to prioritize them. We also follow a lot of prioritization framework, like we usually read everywhere, like the Kano model, the rice model, the quick wins, and the low effort high impact, and so on and so forth. But remember, every organization has its own unique culture, right? So even though we collect the feedback, even though we standardize the feedback, even though we prioritize the feedback, it is extremely important to listen to two things. One, the internal strategic objective, which I'm kind of reiterating from my last answer, and the second, to the evolving technical and the business landscape, right? We don't need to do something which is not going to get adopted or accepted within the next 6 months or 7 months, right? Um, Also, my response to this question, Sunant, will be to kind of flag up that we are surviving and living in a subscription based economy. So, most of the products which we are using, or probably will be using, will be kind of subscription based, right? As opposed to a perpetual license or a no license model, one time deployment based, right? So, in such situation, adoption based and reaching more and more customers across multiple geolocations can be a target. And I'm just assuming in my answer, if that is a target, then we'll have to align the product roadmap and the customer feedback such that we can meet the target and provide some measurable benefits to the investors.
Yeah, thank you, Karabi. Wonderful. Thank you for that elaborated answer. Okay, let's move on. So the third one is, let's say, in a case where there are a few technical constraints, right, that going to limit your certain platform capabilities that has been requested by your various business units. So how are you going to communicate these limitations and how you are going to negotiate a feasible solution around that? Yeah.
Right. So, Sunant, while answering this set of questions, I increasingly find that these questions are more aligned with the enterprise data platform as one of the core product, right? So, if one is actually appearing for an interview, one needs to scan the JD and understand what are the kind of products that the organization has. It will help serve one very critical purpose, to structure our responses around that particular product, right? Which can be easily perceivable and digested by the interviewer. In this case, your question is around the technical constraint of an enterprise data platform. So first, probably we need to understand what are the basic or the common features of an enterprise data platform. It might be scalability. It might be providing, access to a variety of data sources, data format, right? It can be something else. Say, for example, even I shift my answer a bit, not being an enterprise data platform, but say a streaming platform such as Netflix and so on and so forth. Maybe the answer could be structured keeping in mind at least one of the products. So while trying to address the technical constraint and trying to come back with some kind of a resolution to the stakeholders, it is very important to structure a business case such that the business case is as non-technical as possible, right? Assuming that scalability or probably performance is one of the technical constraint which the team has been struggling, we need to define a set of business case or use cases to help the stakeholders understand what has been the general impact, how many user base has been impacted, in what frequency, what has been the churning rate, because the user base has been switching from this EDP to a very different competing EDP, right? And what has been the frequency of the major incident management, or the MI tickets, the major incident tickets? What has been the frequency or the rate of customer who is kind of giving a negative feedback, the rate of declining NPS or CSAT? So all this data and the metrics will be very handy in crafting the use case. For example, if I just pivot my answer that scalability has been one of the teething technical constraint, we'll have to probably talk to the technical architect, understand if the underlying deployment infrastructure is the issue, right? Um, Also, the interviewee needs to understand or probably keep in mind one or two examples of enterprise data platforms, say, for example, the Databricks, the Snowflake, or even enterprise streaming platform, say, for example, Netflix, right? So, if we can think of such examples, then we can understand that probably Snowflake um, has, I mean, all the enterprise platform has an auto scaling facility. It is a feature which is inbuilt, but Snowflake probably is has an auto scaling up till, say, 128 130 node. I'm not sure about that, whereas Databrick has an unlimited auto scaling facility, right? Now, if my enterprise platform is struggling with scaling, with scalability, then probably we need to talk to the architect and understand if there is a resource constraint to be addressed while we are trying to scale up a particular workload, right? At what time the failures are happening? Is it happening in a particular geolocation? Is it happening in a particular time? Is it a load balancer issue? So the more the question we ask to the architect, the more answers we get, and it is easier for us to craft the use cases and define it to the stakeholders in a way so that they can understand this many number of subscribers were impacted. This is the loss in revenue. This is the churn which we have received. These are the number of major incident tickets which the team has been struggling with, because each one of the organizations are fighting and fighting with a limited resources. So we'll have to think along this line, and probably the interviewer in this case is just trying to understand the thought process of that particular PM who is appearing for the interview. I think this should suffice during the course of discussion.
Wonderful, Karabi. I'm thoroughly enjoying this session. And friends, if you have watched the video up till this point, there is no reason not to hit that like button. So go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. Yeah, I'm just watching. Yeah, you're not hit it. Do it. Do it now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. So next question is, let's say there is an existing platform that struggle with scalability and reliability. So how would you go about leading a team to redesign and enhance its capacity to handle various data types and different complex workload, etc. Yeah.
Right. So if I think a minute and not to respond to this answer question immediately, then probably I will pivot my response around the team leadership as opposed to focusing more on the technical constraints, right? Because in your question you have asked, how do I lead a team that is facing these challenges of the platform scalability and reliability, right? So here one naturally assumes it is actually the technical team, the engineering team. But within the engineering team itself, we have a lot of other work streams, like, say, for example, the deployment team, the platform team, right? Or even the team that is crafting the UI. It can be the network team, right? So it is actually an influx of multicultural experts, or probably, multi-expert team that we have to lead in order to address such problems. Now, in each team, we know there will be a team lead, right? The team lead, the designation is not important, but the knowledge within the team member will be of primary importance. Hence, it is important for the PM to provide a very open, transparent, and honest platform for feedback and collaborate, so that each team can come up with his or her own resolution, right? Focusing the discussion towards a resolution is more important than probably focusing on the problem, because the team knows the problem, what is getting impacted and what is the problem. But each one of us will come up with our own resolution. As a PM, my job is to provide them with a very open and honest and a transparent platform so that they can discuss their resolution. Each resolution has to have some kind of an impact, right? If they fix a cloud platform, or probably the microservices architecture, or probably fix the storage issue, this will be impacted, or something is going to be improved, right? Say for example, if there are 10,000 queries which is getting, beyond which a particular server is not responding, or a particular API is failing, right? Then we'll have to determine or address if the API itself is a problem, the storage is a problem, or if something else is the problem. We don't know. Even the data layout can also be a problem, right? So in order to provide that transparent platform, I think it is very important as a PM to strike a chord with each of the team members, right? If it is a very large and distributed team, then it may not be possible to individually reach to each one of the team members, but at least in general, as much as possible, right? Without being too formal and too technical, it is very important to establish that kind of a connect with the team members and provide them with a psychologically safe environment, even to criticize, but that criticism should be a constructive criticism, such that each one of us need to come up with a resolution. Having said that, the resolution needs to pass through the architecture review board, right? Once the architecture review board team members, they reviews it, and they also analyzes the impact, including the business impact, then we can probably create a feature request, ask for fund, and then go ahead and address the problem. So that will be my way of response to this particular question, Sunat.
Correct. So if you allow, I just want to add one or two small points, not more than that. So I would just want to add that maybe we should also define like what scalability and the reliability mean into this context, right? So this might be like if you want to if you want to set some specific uptime target or some performance benchmark, or let's say you want to handle some diverse data types, right? So of course, engage with the stakeholders early to align with the goal is going to be the key factor over here. And of course, as you mentioned about that, we have to assemble a team with a mix of backend engineer, database specialists, or let's say DevOps experts around that. And when we are going to design our new architecture, right, we have to involve the current one to support modular and a scalable components. As you also mentioned about microservices, or let's say serverless architecture, right? So we have to break down our monolithic component into smaller and more scalable services. And you also mentioned about deployment. I think that's again something which we have to take care. So all our we have to implement a proper robust testing and monitoring mechanism in place. So before deployment, maybe we can introduce some automation testing for scalability, for some stress tests, or some load capacity and things like that. And even after the deployment, we may set up some kind of monitoring and alerting system to track the performance, or maybe to identify some anomalies, or to maintain reliability over the period of time. And rather than deploying all changes at once, maybe we can consider a phased rollout, maybe a small, pilot changes on a smaller scale or to a subset of users, and maybe to gather the data performance and improvement, and then maybe we can adjust before the full scale launch. So yeah, these are the small additional points just what I want to add over here.
Yes, for completeness. And Sunant, if you will allow me a minute of time, when you
Please,
said
please.
that scalability and reliability, I think it encouraged me to kind of elaborate on what exactly is meant by data reliability, right? It can mean various things. Uh, I mean, if I speak from an engineering perspective or from a non-technical perspective, but in general, we need to understand when we are talking about enterprise data platform, data reliability means that since the platform is encouraging uh, stitching of multiple data sources with it, and then generating the analytical view, it is right. It means that the data that is getting ingested from these multiple data sources need to be reliable enough to churn out the proper analytics, right? Now, in my experience, what I have seen that mostly data duplication is one of the teething challenge in terms of arriving at a data reliability uh, end state, right? So duplication not only cost us huge storage issues, but also it renders a very inefficient data storage and data enterprise in an inefficient data enterprise platform itself, right? So we have to understand if there are tools available with the EDP as a native tool, or probably third party tools, say for example Panoply or any other third party tool that can help identify duplicate data or duplicate record in the source system, and try to understand or analyze what are the number of unique records. So these two are very, very important KPIs in order to achieve that reliability end state, right? So reduction of duplicate records and increase of an unique record. So when you said that we need to have some kind of a mechanism to monitor and track constantly, even after deployment, monitoring and tracking actually starts even before deployment, when we are developing this EDP, or probably we are enhancing the capability of the EDP, right? Since we are stitching data from multiple data sources, I think the first point in, if we are focusing our answers on the data reliability to sort out that particular issue, then we'll have to utilize some kind of a tool, some kind of a mechanism to compare month on month what has been the duplicate record, what has been the increase in the unique record versus what has been the increase in the volume of the total data versus next month the same parameter, right? In this way we can keep a track of how we are impacting the reliable data and giving unique data to the business consumers.
Wonderful, Karabi, for that great elaborated answer. Okay, let's go ahead. So, can you describe a time when stakeholders were unsure about, which features to prioritize and how to prioritize? So, how you are going to help them in making those decisions?
Right. So see, if I talk from the project manager's point of view, then the my job is basically to help facilitate a particular decision, right? But if I am wearing the hat of a product manager, and I am pretty sure that this particular decision is the need of the hour, then I'm going to channelize and try to influence the decision. So there is a slight difference, like which hat we are wearing at that point in time. Having said that, we have a lot of prioritization framework, as I told in my one of my responses before, and we also need to align with our strategic objective and so on and so forth. But trust me, in my experience, nothing works better, in fact, the best, than appealing psychologically to the investors. If the team is pretty sure that this particular enhancement is going to work wonders for us, whether it is to sort out the underlying performance issue, whether it is to be more competitive, uh, or whether it is to launch a wow feature in the market for that particular platform, then uh, appealing psychologically, albeit with specific data point as to what particular issue is it is addressing and how much the user is getting impacted. If we are able to increase our market share, if we are able to increase the general adoption of the platform, and able to decrease the churn rate, right? So no feature is is good enough unless it is worth paying for, as we say it in our world, right? So being conscious of the adoption rate, the churn rate, being conscious of the strategic objective will be very helpful. And when we are trying to influence the stakeholders, I think crafting the business case with a lot of data point and even before that, even before going to the investors, I think a general consensus within the cross-functional team is very, very critical. If the cross-functional team, they are not aligned, then even if the investors has money, they will definitely not fund it. So those are some of the responses or probably lines of action which I adopt when I'm trying to
Correct.
secure a budget.
Correct. And I just want to add one example from one of my past project. So, like basically, we have like one feature that involve integrating a live chat tool to boost our customer support. So while there's another focus on adding some product recommendation, but then by using this RISE framework, we calculate the impact of each feature. So the live chat had a high impact on user engagement, but then it also requires substantial development time comparison to product recommendation that had a broad reach, but then it's aligned well with our goals. So based on the scoring, the product recommendation features was prioritized first. And through this approach, stakeholders gain clarity on the potential return of each particular feature related to the effort required. So maybe this kind of structure approach help us to align on the different priorities, and it will also help us to drive the most value within our time and budget constraint. So that's something I just want to add. Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. And I can't emphasize, or rather overemphasize, the fact that there are only two broad categories in this world which the investors or the business men they will focus. Number one, to increase their market share, either by offering more value based product as opposed to gaining more number of customers, encouraging their limited user base to adopt I think 100% of the product features and its capabilities. And number two, to reduce the churns. So now it depends on that particular product, the strategic objective, and the organization in internal culture. Which one should be focused more and prioritized more? In a case, I think in general, as of now, if the risk appetite of the organization is not substantial, and if there is a constant heat from the competition, then probably fixing the underlying infrastructure, fixing the existence platform makes more sense, because it is going to give an immediate benefit, a short-term benefit in terms of reducing the churn, right? And then the long term is probably you are going to launch a wow feature, and then increase the market share.
correct, correct. Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Karabi, for that. Okay, let's move on to the next question. The next question is how you're going to gather and use user feedback to keep improving your platform. And if you can also tell us like how you are going to ensure that all these feedback basically lead to a real change, that going to make a real impact on the user. So yeah,
So the question is how am I gathering the user feedback, right? If I'm
correct. Yeah,
understanding
just
correctly.
in order to improve your platform. Yeah,
All right. So obviously feedback system nowadays is kind of multi-channel, right? It is both internal and external. Surveys, then the NPS scores, then feedback from your customer success team, the marketing team, the sales team, feedback in general from the competition, the industry, what the thoughts are. These are all feedback. But I think one of the most successful trait of or a most important trait of a successful product manager is to be in touch with the market and the customer directly, right? Over reliant on the feedback, over reliant on the data and its subsequent analysis needs, I think, can be a warning signal, right? There needs to be a balanced judgment between what that product team is feeling, seeing, experiencing after being in touch with the market directly, and then of course all these other channels of feedback. So establishment of a vibrant and a robust feedback mechanism is very important. Remember, each channel will be governed by its own KPI as a part of its feedback. because a marketing feedback will not be equal to the feedback which we are receiving from a survey, right? So there are 2 or 3 things which I just need to highlight. One is the clarity of thought. What is this feedback all about that we are wanting? For which feature? For which capability? For which, for what? For which service? Right? Brevity, concise, comprehensiveness, structuring of the language of the feedback. And of course, the clarity, brevity, and of course, an alignment with the market, with the strategic objective as well as the market. It will help. We have a number of social media channels nowadays wherein to gather the feedback, but I doubt via any of the social media channels enterprise data platform or feedback on enterprise data platform can be achieved or not. So it depends on the nature of the product as well. So we have to keep in mind the nature of the product, the clarity of our thought, and the preciseness of our language while we are trying to gather the feedback. And feedback from all the channels will not be standard. So there is a need to kind of analyze all the feedback and standardize the feedback, normalize it, and probably then finding a common trend across the feedback, score the feedback, and then prioritize that. All right, that is how I will structure my response against this question, Sumit.
Wonderful, Karavi. Yeah, thank you for that. And looks like with this, we came to end this session. So thank you, Karabi, for being with us and sharing your knowledge. And friend, thank you for joining for today's session. We hope you found it helpful and informative. And if you enjoy this session, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next session. Until then, take care. This is Sunil Sharma signing off. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye. And thank you, Karabi.
Thank you so much.